Hello everybody, welcome to the Positive Partnership Friendship webinar. I hope you've all been having a lovely day so far. Just comment down in the text box there if you can all hear me okay, and I'll continue on. My name is Renee Christie, and I am team leader for New South Wales within the Positive Partnerships team. Hi everyone, thank you for commenting. So I'll also introduce the other facilitator today, my co-facilitator, Linda Hunt. She is the team leader for professional online learning with Positive Partnerships. Today we'll also have Chris Champion moderating. Chris is our National Coordinator of Projects and Innovation, and assisting him as well is Rachel Dillon. So you'll notice the details there at the bottom of the web page there. If you're having any difficulties with the technical side of things, please just contact them and hopefully they can help you out. So welcome to our webinar. Today's webinar is around friendships and young people on the autism spectrum. I'd like to start a poll before we begin. I know a few people have commented down there about where they're dialing in from, but first I'd like to ask in what capacity you are attending this webinar today. So Chris is going to pop up a poll there soon, and you'll see a few options in terms of who you are in supporting young people on the spectrum. You might be a teacher or a parent or a community service worker, a student, or an individual yourself on the spectrum. There it is. Okay, so we see we've got a bit of an even mix going there between parents, school staff and other professionals in the community. So thank you very much. That's very exciting to have a really even mix across all people supporting individuals on the spectrum here today. So before we move on, I'll just point out a few of our webinar tools for those of you who are new. So where you see on the left-hand side where you'll see your name, you can also click to change your icon by just clicking down in the left-hand corner. So you'll see a little icon of a little person's head, and you can click to put yourself on a different icon. So throughout the webinar, we might ask you to fill in, to raise your hand, for instance, or to set your emoji for the day. So you're welcome to use those. You're also welcome to use the text box as you have been doing, just in the left-hand side there. So we're going to be using the text box today when commenting. We may have time for questions at the end to open up the line, but we are expecting a large group today. We will also just raise that to be mindful that this is a short hour, and with such a large group, we'll not be able to answer all questions or solve all concerns, and that we don't, as Positive Partnerships, we don't come from that expert model, but rather we hope that our facilitation of this webinar, the participants are inspired to use the ideas and tools generated and apply them to your individual circumstances. So thank you everybody. All the slides and resources and links today will also be shared and emailed out to you following the workshop, the webinar. So please make sure you use your time in the best possible way for you. So just moving on to where you're dialing in from. So I've seen a few people from Perth and Melbourne so far. I'm going to have another poll placed up there. And we'd just like to get to know a little bit more about you guys, about where you're all dialing in from across the country. And if you are sitting around a computer with a group of other people, can you just please type into the text box how many people you're sitting with there today, so we can get a bit of an idea about how many people exactly we have here. Oh, wonderful. So again, we've got a really great mix across all states and territories so far, except the ACT. So thank you. It really goes to show how widespread our word of Positive Partnerships is. So thank you for that. Now, our session intentions today focus on looking at how the characteristics of autism may have direct impacts on the individual's ability to make and to maintain friendships. And a young person on the autism spectrum may have a very different understanding of what friendships are than what a typically developing student might. And we will discuss how we need to have friends, how the need to have friends varies from person to person. There are a range of strategies, programs and resources that can support young people on the spectrum to learn about friendship and to develop the necessary skills needed to make and maintain friendships and in supporting instances of bullying within the school and community. We will also focus on the importance of working together with your school to ensure everybody understands the unique impacts of autism on the individual and their ability in the friendships. Our intention today is to raise thought and discussion around understanding that complexity of friendship and what can support individuals in their understanding of friendship. We hope that you feel safe talking about your current concerns and acknowledge that all of us here today may have similar or sometimes very different concerns. So please feel free to share your strategies or ideas in an open and respectful manner. We would hope that you walk away today with even one new idea than that we have achieved what we set out to do. So just remember to keep your knowledge of the individual at the forefront of your mind. So to begin, and before we can explore helping young people on the spectrum to make friends, we need to have a good understanding of what friends are. And this will be different for each person in the group, but there may be some common themes. So let's start to identify the qualities and skills of good friends and discuss the different levels of friendship. So first, think about what are the qualities of a good friend. If you could enter some words or phrases that describe qualities of friendship just in the text box there, that would be great. And it might be that it's somebody whose company you genuinely enjoy, and someone who's there to listen, someone you can trust and who won't judge you. And I see that a lot of these qualities are coming up around respect, non-judgment, trust, and being a good listener. And finally, we have there somebody who supports you no matter what. And somebody that understands you, and as you go on, you might even start thinking around things such as belonging and somebody that you can have security with. And in young people, it's about being able to learn from our peers and to understand different elements of social interaction, such as cooperation. It could be that you've got somebody there to be a good role model. Loyal, yeah, thank you there, Rhonda. That's a really good one too. And Susan, what have you got there? Someone you are comfortable to be around, exactly. And that really encompasses all of those qualities so that you really do feel comfortable within your friendship. Now, for people on the autism spectrum, friendship can look different depending on the individual. And this can range from appearing to have no friends, having one good friend, through to a number of acquaintances, both in the school setting and in the community. Some individuals on the spectrum might name the person sitting next to them at the time as their friend. And remembering, as discussed in the previous slide, that sometimes qualities of friendship are so different. And some of those qualities of friendship are seen through the eyes of teachers and sometimes our own, and we need to understand that there are different levels of friendship. So for example, we're not all best friends, but we do have friends and acquaintances at different levels and in different settings. We develop friends through many and varied life experiences. So for a young person on the spectrum already struggling with understanding the complexity of friendship, this can be very confusing for them. So considering this, we'd like to ask you now, what are your thoughts on how many friends a young person, or how many friends do I need? And do you see the young person you support, or possibly even yourself sitting in this broad range? So please comment in the text box as well, and keep in mind that there are no right or wrong answers around this in terms of how many friends do I need. What are your experiences? Thanks, Wendy. There, sometimes one friend is a good enough number. Having few that you trust but many acquaintances. Thanks, Nicole. So that's really showing that not having this big, broad spectrum of friends is all that you need. And sometimes, yeah, that 1, 2, or sometimes up to 5 can be the number. Quality over quantity. Very good, Gina. I agree. So we can see how it can vary for us, but in particular how it varies for our young people. So when we're thinking about the diversity of autism and how social interactions impact on and the many varied characteristics of autism and what goes on there, Positive Partnerships has actually released a podcast of real stories of 6 people from across Australia, and they each have a connection to the autism spectrum. This is a free and available resource through Apple iTunes. And we cover a range of people from parents to the individual themselves, and the themes of friendships is often common, while always unique amongst each story. So we're going to play now an excerpt from one of our podcasts where a mother shares her experiences of her son and his friends and really highlights her son's uniqueness in terms of his characteristics and how he sees his circle of friendships. So what I'll ask everybody to do is, if you are listening through your computer, is keep the volume turned up on your computer. If you are listening through the audio line, please press *6 to mute yourself.
Socially, considering that he looks different and he acts different with his albinism and his autism, he has actually never been bullied, and he's always had some sort of friend network. It's his personality. He's got an amazing personality, and I think that's just, and he just comes out with the most sort of off the wall things, and I think the other kids just think, wow, you know, some of them, I help out at the school sometimes, and someone would say, gosh, Sam is smart, or, you know, this is what he came out with today. And so I think they were basically in awe, or at least, you know, they would just go, wow, this kid is, you know, a bit different. So it never occurred to them to bully him, which was amazing, waiting for it in high school though. But he's got a core group of kids who are also on the spectrum. And they just get each other, and I love their play dates. He's got a friend who comes over, and they just sit on the bed together each with an iPad, and they'll show each other a video occasionally, but often it's just, for them, it's enough to be sitting next to each other in the same room, you know, and so I've learnt to appreciate that that's the way that, you know, that they enjoy it. And it's, you know, he's never going to have, or he's never going to appear to have the same sort of relationships or friendships as you know, kids would normally be expected to, but that is okay because it satisfies him, you know, and makes him happy.
So I hope everybody could hear that all right. We heard from Kirsty there. She's a parent of Xander on the spectrum. And you can access that full podcast series where through the Positive Partnerships series. So there we see Kirsty shared some strengths and difficulties which really highlight the diversity of autism for her young son. If anyone has had any similar experiences to Kirsty, you can probably just pop a few ideas in the text box there as well. But as we move on to the next part, we really want to link that into our diversity of autism slide here and see how each of the characteristics of autism can really impact on the young person's ability to understand friendships and to go on and make and maintain friends as well. So when we think about the diversity of autism, we're going to talk about how each of these characteristics can in themselves impact on the individual's abilities to access and maintain friendships. So to begin with, let's look at communication. And this includes the difficulties in both expressing your needs and wants, but then on top of that, being able to comprehend the message received from others. And it can lead to frustration and isolation from all sides of the communication pathway. A young person on the spectrum can also sometimes miss key messages and not have learnt the skills to be able to check in and clarify situations with their peers and teachers. We're also adding to this complexity of many and varied non-verbal signals, constantly transmitting through communication, and a challenge in this literal interpretation of language. So I wanted to also, we're going to also bring up another story from the podcast series. And this is about a young man on the autism spectrum himself named Thomas, and he shares a story about his literal interpretation of language and the impact that that had on a social situation from his childhood. So again, I'll ask you to put yourselves on *6 on mute if you're listening through your phone. Otherwise, just turn the volume up on your computer.
Anyway, life was all right. I mean, I did make some mistakes here and there. I went and when I was in year 2, I decided to go to the bushlands behind my grandma's backyard. Mum and Dad have always taught me never to talk to strangers. But when I saw a couple of kids with their mother hanging out, I thought, hey, look, here's some kids my age. Let's see what they like. And then I decided to go on a hiking trip with them for 2.5 hours. The entire neighborhood was in chaos. They were worried the hell about, where's Thomas? Where did he go? When they did end up finding me, I finally made my way down to almost Zigzag Railway. We were on the path to that train station. Mum spanked me and said, Thomas, what is wrong with you? I thought we told you never to talk to strangers. I said, yeah, but I introduced myself to them and they introduced themselves to me and we're no longer strangers. Apparently I didn't understand, certain quid pro quos to these social cues.
So that was Thomas, and Wendy, I've just seen your question there about how to access the podcast series. So if you do go to the Apple iTunes or to access the podcast, that's where you can just type in the search Positive Partnership, and it'll come up there, and they're free to stream and listen to. So I hope that's helpful for you. We might be able to even provide a link to that as well in our post communication to everybody. So moving on, it's always great to hear from the individual on the spectrum, and in retrospect, Thomas being able to look back on, the challenges he faced as a young person with communication and how that impacted on his ability to understand, strangers or friendships. So we can really start to link in and understand, that the very complexity of it all. And especially when we do go into social interactions, for some individuals on the autism spectrum, there are many elements of this that can impact, and often young people will find things like sharing and taking turns very difficult, especially depending on the interest level of the items or activity involved. The unpredictability of peers in general is very complex, and this is often why we may see students on the spectrum gravitate towards adults in play or in conversation, because they are more predictable. Or it could be that they gravitate towards younger children with less developed play skills. We may also consider the complicated social games, for example, tip or handball, games like these, where there are very complex rules involved in these games, and often these rules will change depending on the group of children or how that group communicate. So we do have a short clip that we want to show you. The focus of this video is from the Kids Matter website, and the focus of this video is on a group of students and one of their fathers playing handball. And it highlights the range of the different social and emotional skills that are used by the students and the father, and the complexity of reading and understanding and communicating in keeping up with the game. And this is just 1.3 minutes of the game. So now Chris will bring this video up again, and the same goes for the sound with your computer.
You can't get me out there. Must be decent. Zach, you can't do anything to me. Yes, you can. Can't grabs.
Oh, gone.
No. Yeah, you played grabs. It was grabs. Yeah, play grabs. So you're over there. And no, you're standing.
I'm frightened now.
Oh no, you played it. Yeah, you're in there. You're out. Yeah. Alright, muscle my hand, muscle my hand, back mouse. That's me. You're out. What? I already said it first. That's me. You're out.
Get him out, everybody. Oh, all I did was say.
And you got out. Oh, minor. I played it. How did you get out? He doesn't know these rules. Oh, that's out. Oh, no,
Did it go outside that line?
Yeah, out of it.
Okay.
So hand over power and he's out. Oh, try to That's all right, Joe. You just go.
Okay, thank you there, Chris, and hopefully everybody was able to view that. And considering all of that complexity that was going on in just that 1 minute, 1.3 minutes, you can start to imagine how for young people with challenges in any of these social or communication areas can find just even 1 minute on the playground so intense, and that could be that last, final trigger before any behavioural consequence. So it's just a good way of being able to look at it from the perspective of the young person. So when we look at repetitive behaviours and restricted interests, for individuals on the spectrum, the impacts of this in relation to social interactions can be that play is often characterised by a focus on objects and or the specific interest area, and less on that relationship building with the person or with the friend. This can lead to a one-sided and often repetitive conversation on one topic. It can be challenging for peers to stay engaged, and hence they move on to other friendships. It can then lead to that individual on the spectrum becoming isolated in their play and or at risk of bullying behaviour. So moving on to sensory processing, and this will depend again on the individual sensory sensitivities of people. And this area may impact in their ability to be involved in certain activities that may involve this skill. Especially when in social settings are new or unpredictable, we can often link this to behaviours occurring that are often interpreted as challenging. For example, running away from a crowded shopping centre. And this also includes proprioception, which is one of those sensory examples of that it's involving muscles and joints. And so this may mean that somebody with a challenge in that area or difficulty in that area may have challenges in coordination or ball skills. And we do run we have run a recent webinar on sensory processing, which you can access on our website to find out more about that topic. And finally, we look at information processing or learning style, or sometimes called the learning profile of the student or your young person. An example here is the difficulties individuals on the spectrum face around executive functioning. So this is our ability to develop, this is our ability to organise and plan. And so you may need these skills in planning and organising for friendships and for maintaining, commitments and things like that. So this may impact on the ability to maintain friendships, including things like social calendars and managing the conflicts that occur. So just in summary, I guess within the characteristics of autism, we need to explore those on an individual level, and we will see that no two individuals will ever be the same, have the same impact. And as we add into that the very complex layers of friendships for all people that we all experience, then it appears that there isn't any wonder why socialising can be such a confusing element of the world. And as we've said before, what is important is the knowledge of yourself and how that is communicated. So the knowledge of yourself or of your young person and how you can communicate that between home and school and share that across home and school. So as we're moving on to one of our key tools within positive partnerships, so this is our planning matrix, and this is a great tool. If anybody hasn't heard much about it, we do have an online module within our website where you can learn a lot more about this tool. And it's a great way to document the diversity of autism. So if you've learned about this before, either at a webinar, you'll know what we're talking about. You can really use this matrix to highlight the individual characteristics of someone on the autism spectrum and really unpack the impacts of these characteristics and then explore the strategies that support them. The young people on the spectrum may need to be carefully coached through these early stages of friendships and understanding and developing friendships. So it's really important to include them in these discussions and to also consider all that we've discussed so far. So we've got one populated here, so I'll just click over to that. So when we look at the impact, hold on. There we go. Moving on. So this one here is populated, and we look at the impacts row. We often see instances here in this example, as previously discussed, of isolation of the individual or the frustration of other peers. And this also impacts sometimes in instances of teasing and bullying occurring. And sometimes the young person's vulnerability in their social and communication can predispose them to being the victim. However, sometimes it could be also that the young person is seen as the perpetrator. So we also see that there might be misinterpretation of the actions of others, either as being a bully or being a friend, when really it is the other way around. But when we're looking at this matrix, we can really construct a visual story or map of your young person. And we can start to identify what influences upon somebody's ability to understand, make and also maintain friendships, including how to support that individual through challenging situations such as bullying. We have another example here which I'm going to pop up out of the matrix, and it's another example of the social interactions column and how you can see the links between the impacts and the strategies. So a strategy here is when we've looked at Ethan's characteristics and impacts, a strategy that's been formed here with the school, between the school and home, has been investigating options of starting a Transformer Club one lunchtime by finding other students with similar interests and possibly advertising it in the school newsletter. Now, every strategy will look different for all individuals, and many strategies that develop friendship skills also develop other skills, so it's really a great opportunity to work together using this tool. They're most successful when discussed in a collaborative way between the teacher and the parent, and even more so with the individual there as well. So I am now going to pass over to Linda. She's going to take us through a bit more about what are some strategies, and we'll look at some strategies that we're using and share some of those across other participants of the webinar, and also share some really great resources with you as well. So I'll pass it over to Linda now. Thank you all for your attention.
Thanks, Renee.
Thanks.
Okay, so as Renee said, we're going to have a look at some strategies now. So, and particularly get you to share some strategies you might currently be using. And you can see some that have popped up here on the screen, you know, including role playing and practice turn taking, and using toys, you know, with different age children to act out a scene and things like that. It'd be great for you to share some of the strategies that you're currently using in the areas of friendship or friends or social situations, that we can have a look at what different types of things that you might currently be using. So if you could share those in that text box, that would be absolutely fantastic. Social skills groups is great. Thank you very much. Social stories. Yep. Thank you. As we can see, those different things similar to that are just popping up on the screen now. Using visuals. It's really good example then the school's implemented Try It Tuesday. That's a great idea with hands-on activities so kids can give things a go. And the Detective Club. Excellent. Gina, is that the Secret Agent Society? Oh, fantastic. Some great ideas there. Good to see those different visuals and comic strips and things like that as well. Excellent. So we've got some extra things here about teaching explicitly the rules of different social situations, because I think sometimes people forget that we can explain what the rules are, but we actually have to be really, really explicit when we're teaching each step of those skills when we're talking about social interactions. Okay, so Gina has just said that there's Autism Association WA runs something similar. Using buddies is a good idea, and Lego clubs are a great idea too. Excellent. Lots of people mentioned visual prompts to help the communication. Yeah, Sophie, I can totally understand that. It's got a good friendship base, but it's about the intervening when the socialising is becoming too much and having that time out and knowing how to remove yourself from that situation without being so rude and everything. That's great. Fantastic. We've got a really great article that we'll share with you after the webinar. It's called Tips for Being a Friend with a Student with Autism. It's written by a group of primary students. And often strategies come from sort of outside the box. And in this case, a group of grade 5 students came up with a game that everyone could play at recess, and then they collectively share their 21 tips. And it's helpful as it reminds us that we all have something to learn about friendship and embracing difference. So we'll send that out to you in a whole list of things that you'll get at the end of the webinar that might give you some different ideas. Okay, we're going to, so one of the strategies that we're going to further explore, and it's kind of hit on already with quite a lot of the comments are about what happens between home and school, is the partnership between home and school. So we're going to have another listen to another excerpt of a podcast of a parent sharing strategies and how she works with the school around the area of social interaction and friendships. So if you could, once again, turn your volume up on your computer and star six yourself. We'll just have another listen to this little excerpt. Thanks, Chris. I'm not sure if we could be hearing any.
He was 7, so he started in year 2. So I think he turned 8 early in that year. So yes, we went across, and it was, I had a month off to support him, but then 5 weeks in, the week I went back to work, he ended up getting suspended. So that was, you put all the preparation in place, and it doesn't always come off, but that was actually probably a good thing because we all came together and were able to see what more we could put in place. So we put a communication book in and regular meetings, and they took more seriously, I suppose, some of the the needs that he has. He was suspended. He was stressed, I think, because I'd gone back to work, so he knew that I was half an hour away, not sort of 5 minutes away. So he had expressed some stress that week. I'd already been given a phone call, I think, a couple of days before saying, he's exhibiting these behaviours, more like a warning of suspension. So I knew that things were a little bit, just because he was not following rules, and he was lashing out at people, basically. But the suspension came about because an inexperienced aide was trying to help him, and he basically hit her. And in the Department of Education, normally that's an automatic suspension. That's sort of how it was explained to us at the time. And we were devastated. We were disappointed because we thought, okay, we've gone through this process with the school, they know his issues, why do they still suspend him when it's basically what he wants? He doesn't want to go to school. You know, the suspension doesn't often work. But I did understand, and that, you know, they went through and showed us the discipline policy, but we're able to move forward and work on that, and that's the thing. We had to see, okay, how can we move forward from this? Because I could have easily pulled him out and taken him back to Aspect after that. I was that devastated, I guess, that all the work we put in the transition process still resulted in him, you know, being suspended, and in my mind it was unfair and he wasn't being understood.
Okay, so I apologise for the techo issues at the very beginning there, but hopefully you managed to hear that little bit of an excerpt from another mother speaking there, with a focus on the homeschool partnership. And I think what comes out of that is that it shows that it's a work in progress, that you can't always get it right straight off the bat, and you know, her commitment and the school's commitment to going back and revisiting was probably a great thing in the end. So families need to have a strong partnership with their schools and vice versa to create supportive environments that help young people feel confident both socially and emotionally at school. We're now going to show a video that's taken from our Introduction to the Planning Matrix module, which Renee mentioned earlier. It's available on our website. And this highlights this homeschool partnership working together to understand this teenage girl, Sophia, socially, and what the school and the parents can actually do together. So I will mute myself this time so you won't hear any background noise, but can I ask you to make sure that your volume's up on your computer and you mute yourselves? Thanks, Chris.
So let's move on to social interactions. Sort of touched a little bit on that, haven't we?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, if it's a lot of people I don't know, I don't like that. Mm-hmm. But people I do know, I feel comfortable.
So large groups can be daunting for you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, small groups are fine. Of people you know?
Yeah.
So you think you've got fairly strong friendships at school?
Yeah. Mainly Kelsey.
Okay, I think we're having a few technical issues there, so I don't think we'll be worrying about that.
My school.
That clip, thanks, Chris.
I'm more me when I'm around them, which makes me feel really happy because I can just be me.
Basically,
join in.
People can have a look at various clips of different parents having conversations with their schools around the different characteristics from the matrix, and this particular one shows quite a bit of information around social networking and things like that, which are very huge in our children's lives at the moment.
You've got people around you.
Can everyone share perhaps any strategies that you are currently using with your schools in any way around to support some social friendships or development, some social clubs? Lots were mentioned before around Lego clubs and things like that at school. It would be great to see some different ways, strategies or different ways that you're working in partnership with your school.
Hi, Linda. Are you still on the line?
Yep, I'm still on the line, but I didn't get any of that. Okay, so we're back to slides now.
What's happening on yours? You all right?
Apologies everyone. Yep. Okay, so I didn't see any of that clip, but obviously you did, and I was yabbering away over the top of that, so I do apologise. So can we recap that then? That was quite a good way of watching the parents and the teachers and the young person involved. We've mentioned that before, which is a really good idea of having them involved. So thanks now for sharing those ideas about how you're sharing things. Lots of different teachers at high school, that can be an interesting year, Rhonda. Get used to that, and emailing and everything is fantastic as well. So thank you for sharing those ideas, and I apologise for technology. You just got to love it, don't you? Okay. Yep, lunchtime clubs are great for that feeling of isolation. And I think, Eliza, like you said, the lunchtime club can be similar to what we heard of the mother speaking before, where her son and friends sit there with their iPads side by side, not necessarily a full interaction, but there's still companionship there, which I think is a great idea. So leading on from what you've been sharing with us, when schools embrace diversity in all its forms and create an environment which is accepting and different, it provides a wonderful platform for students on the spectrum to develop and thrive socially. And emotionally, sorry. It won't immediately be a solution for every social situation, but you should feel confident that the additional supports and strategies you're encouraging to be put in place aren't being undermined by a school culture fundamentally in contradiction to what you're trying to achieve. In fact, they should complement what the school is striving to achieve for every student. Just another positive partnerships resource that we have that some of you may have seen or used. It's called Jambi, The Different Kookaburra, and it's a storybook developed with a community in Victoria that sends many messages about difference and acceptance. The storybook has a free app for your tablet with interactive games and different learning levels. And our website also showcases this book by developing your own sensory bag to emphasise key messages. So that's just something else that might be out there as well. You'll also receive the link to that recording. It's called Jambi, and you'll receive one of those, the links to that, Gina, after the webinar. Actually, the link is right there if you'd like to download it. It's in that text box, but you'll definitely get it after the webinar as well. Okay, just going to move on to a few books now. There are so many different books written about a whole pile of different things. We're just going to highlight a couple there that some of you may or may not have heard of. And just if you have books that you're using, you might want to share those in the text box as well. So the first couple we're going to highlight, Making Friends, A Guide to Getting Along with People, which is the book on the far right-hand side. So this book is all about friendships and not as easy and clear-cut as they appear to be, and this book tells it like it is. It's a brilliant self-help book covering topics like standing up for yourself, when friends disagree, how to listen to other people, approval-seeking behaviour, leaving people to their own thoughts, personal space, complimenting people, etc. So some of those things were raised before. People had concerns about that whole, the friends are there, but it's how they interact with friends. So that would be a good book there. One for school staff, really, in The Sixth Sense, number 2 by Carol Gray is an excellent resource as well, because it has lesson plans developed to share information about autism spectrum disorders with general education students, to explain behaviours that might otherwise be misinterpreted as frightening, odd or rude. So it sort of reviews the Sixth Sense is about the social sense, which is quite good for other kids to learn about as well. A couple more books here. Just going to highlight the one on the far right, Freaks, Geeks and Asperger's Syndrome by Luke Jackson, which many of you may have heard of before. Luke is a young man. He was a 16-year-old boy when he wrote this book, but it draws from his own experiences and gaining information from his teenage brothers and sisters. It's enlightening, honest, very, very witty, very easy to read, and it's got topics, information about bullying and friendships and when and how to tell others about autism, school problems, dating, relationships, and so on. It's a bit of a giggle, and it's definitely a good read for all people, I think. On this one here, we have Bullying in Schools, the book on the far left-hand side that we're going to highlight now, written by Ken Rigby. So Ken is an Australian, lives in South Australia, so he has quite a knowledge around this, has done lots of research into bullying. It's a passionate and motivating book, shows there's ways of reducing the likelihood of bullying in schools and effective ways of tackling cases when they do occur. So it's up-to-date studies, which is very hands-on and up to the moment, and good to read a book that sometimes is Australian and not necessarily American. And finally, our last book that I want to highlight is the one on the far right, To Accept and Value Each Person. So this is for younger students between the ages of 4 to 8. It's about accepting and valuing people in groups who are different from oneself and one's immediate family. It's a critical social skill. It introduces diversity and related concepts like respecting difference and being inclusive and just appreciating people the way they are. So I know it's good to see that other people are sharing things down there. So we have Talk to Me by Heather Jones. Thank you. It's great to have different resources shared because there are so many out there on the market. Just flick through a quick few more here. So Hidden Curriculum is really good at sort of unpacking the unstated rules and customs that can make the world a really confusing place for people on the autism spectrum. And it just offers suggestions about and advice for parents, teachers and other professionals on how you can teach the subtle rules, because they really are very, very subtle, as lots of you are aware. These two books here are great. I've actually used the high school's one in my teaching background. They're social skills picture books. They appeal to the visual strengths of students on the autism spectrum because they've got coloured photos of students demonstrating various social skills with the correct and sometimes incorrect way. The skills are meant to be role-played and, different scenarios to go through with that. So the book that's open is the High School and Beyond book, to give you an idea around personal space. So the page that it's on is called It's Don't Be a Space Invader. And the picture on the left, it shows the right way with someone on one side of the lockers and on the other. They're at least an arm's length away and saying hello to each other. And then the wrong way is we can only see part of that picture, but the young man is standing quite close to the young girl, and she's feeling a bit nervous, so because it's like he's following her. So it's quite good to have those sorts of they're picture books, but a bit more realistic because they have the actual photographs in them. Some great ones are being shared. Thank you very, very much in the book. In the box. Fantastic. And you'll get a list of all these books at the end of the webinar as well. So you can go back and highlight and have a look at some of those things if you want to. Okay, so we've talked about throughout the webinar, and lots of you have shared about your use of visual supports, which has been great. They can assist with teaching of friendships, emotional and social skills, and they can also help consolidate the skills across into new situations. We're going to share with you post-webinar 2 examples of a social script as well. And they'll also share with you, it's called the Playdate Sandwich, and it's an article highlighting the careful planning and layering of elements that goes into successful playdates and how it can take the form of a visually structured playdate. So we have there Kerry sharing that Judy Endow is a woman on the spectrum who writes about hidden curriculum. That's a good read. Thank you for sharing. That's great. So we've got comic strip conversations there, which people spoke about before. People have spoken about social stories. and the circles program on the right there, those three things go together. It just shows that there's generally an instruction. There's room for visuals, don't just always have to be pictures. So just a couple of more strategies here about, we have one on the left is called the hassle log. So it's a sort of a tick and flick for young people to be able to select the things that are an issue at a particular point in time. They can be created to suit the individual. They can include images and symbols, or just words, or just images, just symbols. It's totally up to you on what you're writing about for the young person. And the one on the right, a strategy called Hotspot Cool Hints. And they're like card size. On the left-hand side is the hotspot. In this situation, it's for joining a new group. And then the cool hint on the right-hand side offers step-by-step strategies that you might be able to join that new group or the new group of people. Still great things coming through in the text box. Thank you so much. You're a very knowledgeable crowd today, which is great to have people sharing. Okay, so quite a lot of programs that already exist and that are running within schools across Australia, but they're about empowering young people and to develop resilience and self-advocacy, social skills, self-knowledge, and an understanding of another's point of view. And all of these will be sent out after the webinar. So we've got the Reach Out program, Kids Matter and Mind Matters programs, Bounce Back, which is being used a lot at the moment, so educators and psychologists share a common goal to support children and adults develop a stronger sense of well-being. I know that's a really common one being used at the moment. We have Helen McGrath's material, which are programs for schools to support students. And then the Secret Agent Society, which I mentioned before, is how to recognise emotions in themselves, to express feelings in appropriate ways, how to start, continue and end conversations and play activities with others. So that's a really good program there as well. Okay, so the hotspot and cool hints. Currently they're not, Wendy, but we are putting together a bank of resources which hopefully you'll be able to access on our website when we have them up and running. And if you attend any of our webinars or workshops or that sort of thing, when they're available, you'll get an email about that as well. So, yeah, but sometimes you can make them to suit whatever your young person currently needs. They're also used at our workshops as well for parents. So if you'll be able to see them and take photos if you happen to be able to access a workshop that's in your area. A whole pile of different websites here as well. You'll get a list of all the websites that we've shared as well. So don't be thinking that you have to be madly writing all these down. So we have the Castle, which is a collaborative academic, social and emotional learning, which is about the 5 interrelated core competencies, which I think someone mentioned before. We have the Aspect Launchpad, which is good for older students to prepare for transitions out of school, and there's a really good tab around social life, including conversations and dating and social media. The National Autistic Society, it's a UK organisation, and they have a huge range of resources written for people on the autism spectrum, their families and schools. So that would be a great one for you to use as well. We also have CyberSmart. That's got heaps of interactive learning. I know lots of schools use CyberSmart. There's an online resource centre, there's a parent blog and different programs for different staff. And then there's the National Safe Schools Framework as well, which is there. And the Stay Smart online. I think it's being used a lot in schools at the moment. The cyber safety and social media is really becoming quite a big thing for us. Okay, and finally, our Positive Partnerships website, which you would have all been to in order to register for today's webinar. A whole pile of different resources there. There's different courses for parents and professionals, as well as a whole pile of fact sheets. There's information module on making friends and bullying, as well as a range of other topics which you can explore further. We also have a Making Friends app, which is available from the App Store to download free on your iPhone only, and our Jambi app, which is available for tablets and iPads. Our homepage is where you can see the parent and carer registered workshops, and we'll share the state and territory. Okay, we're not going to do that, sorry. School staff have to contact their sector leaders to find out about professional learning opportunities, but generally if you get in touch with your sector rep, they will let you know when there's going to be a workshop in your area. So we also have the Positive Partnerships Facebook page. We've got over 7,000 followers. You can find tips, information, conversations regarding supporting of your child. We advertise all the webinars and workshops on that page as well, so that's also a good way to tap into what's happening. As Renee has just shared, we've got a visual support survey which would be great to have you all complete. So particularly when you were talking about what we have available, you can access that survey on our homepage as well. We're going to send it with our post communication too. That's another way of getting some more information about what you would actually like us to provide. Okay, so we're just about to the end of our webinar today, so thank you so much for everything that you have shared with us today. That's great. Renee has just shared the link to our visual support survey that's in the friendship book there that you could have a look at. We also have we'd like you please to provide us feedback for our webinars, because we're ever changing and developing new ones. So there is a link there which Chris has put into the text box. We'll also send it after the webinar. But just really good for you to have a think about, what you've learnt today, what questions do you have, and what are you going to do now? So what are you actually going to take away from this, and how you might develop the social world that your young person or the people that you support live in. We're going to leave the text box open for about 10 minutes for people to share apps and download links if they'd like to. But other than that, I will share, sorry. Our next webinar coming up is on Monday the 17th of July, and that's it's called Talking About Communication in Autism, and it is run by one of our speech pathologists that works with us, so that would be a really good thing to have a listen to if you'd like to sign up for that, and that is open to sign up for now on our homepage. So I thank you very much for joining us today, and any final thoughts, please type them in that text box, and we'll leave it open for a while for you to grab the links that you might need. So thank you very much for joining us today.